Reva Minkoff is an analytics expert who graduated from Harvard, worked at Google, and then started her own consultancy that has worked on projects for companies like Facebook. In this conversation, we talk about making analytics meaningful for organizations at different stages of maturity. Yeah, so we were talking earlier in the course about having a little conversation with you, and I know that before we started the interview, we were going to, basically talk about some stories that you as a sort of growth hacker, analytics master have seen in different cases.
Right.
So basically what we're going to do here is look at three cases kind of, because Reva was, saying that basically you have a different use case as a business person for your analytics platform, how you spend your time, depending on whether you're a startup or you're in a launch phase, if you're in a mid phase, if you're relatively mature. So,
yeah, or if you're a media company, or if you're a company that, sells products, like they're just different. Or if you're B2B, like there's different things that you look for across the board.
So let's I thought that maybe a good case would be, your case. So you're launching, or you have launched Digital Ground Up, and obviously you're like an analytics pro, and even though Digital Ground Up teaches digital marketing, you are basically having the same challenges of many launch businesses.
Right, definitely. In our website, especially in the beginning, we actually would track it every day, once or twice a day, just to make sure that we had the full numbers of how many people had come, how many people had gone to our registration page, and how many people had actually signed up. Because that was most important to us, both the conversion to registration page and for people signing up, and then where were the people who made it to the sign up page coming from, right? And where
so
the
you were
registration
using it frequently.
Oh yeah, like every day.
Okay.
Just to keep an eye on those pieces, like what's working, what's not, where are like the people who want to take these courses coming from, if we're doing initiatives, are those initiatives driving people, that kind of thing. I don't think we really needed to do it every day necessarily. I think it depends how fast you're growing.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to, even if you're just a smaller company, to start looking at those things. We could see, it helped us figure out pretty early on, like, what are some of the issues? Are people understanding things? We've done a couple partnerships and that haven't really yielded anything, and it helps us be able to measure that. Mm-hmm. So that's important. And I mean, analytics are still, there's still some stuff that we have to go and add into that report by hand. When they signed up, right, they were going through to our platform, so I could see the signups, but to see, and I could see if they logged in, but ultimately, like, to track some of the people, we would actually look at the website sign and, like, on our back end, say, oh, we have this user, and I know that user is the person I talked to yesterday at this thing. So, I mean, there's still the manual bit, and for some sites, that manual bit has been more encompassing than others.
So it almost seems to me like for the startup sort of phase that it's kind of this experience of just tracking all these micro pilots that you're kind of putting out there.
Yeah,
just to
exactly.
see, just to get some hazy view of which kind of stuff is working.
I think that's 100%.
Okay.
How I would put it.
So then, like, of course, you got to protect your client's privacy and everything. But I mean, looking at more of like a mid-stage business, maybe can you tell us a story? Like, first, like, kind of what industry is this case you're thinking about? Were they spending money or not? What kind of were their goals? And what did you see? What was the story? What happened?
Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously a very wide open question, right? Because there are a lot of different. Yeah, but I mean, I think it depends. I mean, I guess the thing is, we've had some where it's really important, especially as you grow a little bit, to watch the visitor flow. So we had a couple cases where people would sort of yo-yo between a couple pages on the site. So they'd go to the About page, and then go to the Why page, and then go back to the About page, and then go back to the Why page. And maybe they'd go to the sign up page through there, but they weren't actually signing up. They'd go back to the About page, back to the... and that was a situation, I mean, again...
So these people are basically going like, what is this business all about?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. What is the site? And that's common with startups. Again, I think all these issues are sort of common across the board, right? So, I've seen it with startups. They were launching a new product, and it was happening for them too. And that's the point where you say, okay, what's the messaging, or can we make the messaging better? Even if we're getting some of those people coming through in the end, can we also we have this opportunity here of all these people who are having 4 or 5 clicks around the site and don't seem to really have an understanding of what we're about, what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you're talking here, I'm sort of thinking about, what's different between the startup case you've just said and then the one that you're talking about now, which is more of like a sort of growth, early to mid-stage organization. And the visual that's coming to me is like, as a startup, you're almost like this like Jackson Pollock painting, or just a really abstract piece of art, and you're like, what is this?
Yeah, I think in the beginning you're just like, what's working? Oh my God, people are coming. Oh wait, are they people I don't know? Oh my God, people are coming who aren't my personal friends and a family. Like, I think there's some of that in the beginning is
but
more
this
like
mid-stage, I'm seeing more like, it's not a photograph because you don't know what it is yet, but you're getting better. It's more of this optimization.
Right, you're getting closer.
Yeah, you're getting closer.
Exactly, and you want to see
maybe more A/B testing.
Yeah,
the messaging you're describing.
and you have enough data to start pinpointing a problem. They have big enough numbers. You start having big enough numbers to say, okay,
people are stopping.
It's not
here.
just 2 people who've done this. We have 100 who've done this, and that's
right.
like a much more compelling.
You're saying like the exit, for example, like 100 people have visited this, and that we've seen exits, and like clearly something's happening here, or something like that.
Yeah, and again, exits are tricky because sometimes you want them to exit, but we know that we had 2,000 people go through this funnel, and we lost a third of them on step X. Mm-hmm. Is there a way we can keep some of those people? Mm-hmm. They made it into the funnel. They do 3 steps and they leave before step X.
Now,
so that happens all the time too. So that's another one where, again, you have enough data to say something.
You have enough traffic to actually make your funnel meaningful.
Right, and you're doing things that are, like you said, it's less of a Jackson Pollock. You're starting to have brushstrokes. You know what you're doing, or you sort of think you know what you're doing, maybe.
Well, so I wanted to bring this for managers now, because I'm sure that some of you guys are in a management type of position. So, let's talk more about now a business that's relatively established. One thing that you told me, off camera is that sometimes, clients think that they know what's going on and it's not matching with their analytics.
Right. It's really important to make sure that you are backing up the data you have with what's happening on with on analytics. The example we were talking about were people doing kind of customer surveys to get information about customers, and I've seen this more than once. And they'll say, oh, great, so all our customers are like this, and they're this demographic, and they visit the site this many times, and they come back this often, and they like these pages, and they buy this product. And if you look at their actual data, that just doesn't reflect that. So we've seen cases where like the top selling product is not the most visited product page, or the it's pretty common to see people probably visit your site less frequently than you think they do, at least according to analytics. If you look at returning visitors, because if they're responding to a survey, they're somewhat engaged, and so they're probably going to be more interested than the average user.
So now to kind of extend the art metaphor, it's like if you're in this more mature business, it's like you want to get a photograph because you want to say, okay, my team or whoever's telling me that from customer surveys, this is what they see, but you got to mix that with the data to make sure that it's reality.
Exactly. And you want to know what's happening with your business. Whether you're a manager, whether you're an owner, even if you're someone who's just working on a team, you want that snapshot. You want to know exactly.
Well, you were talking about clients that you've worked with who are shelling out money, whether it's to advertising campaigns or to an agency or whatever, and they're not keeping track of the numbers.
Right. It's really important to make sure that everything is, and that's why we come in a lot of the cases. You really, really need to make sure that the stuff you're doing does have a purpose. So we've talked a lot in this lesson about having goals. Things need to go back to them. If your conversion is offline, there needs to be some way you're tying that into your your data, your analytics. I mean, even if you have to do it manually by hand, which I've done before, you still want to make sure that the stuff on your website is leading to something, or that you know what it's leading to, because, you know, especially as you get to those bigger organizations, you're going to have multiple teams, you're going to have multiple departments. People are going to come back to you as marketing and say, hey, like, what did this do? And you need to, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to answer that question. Certainly there are always going to be multiple channels assisting in conversions. You know, it's not usually just one channel, like one interaction and then they buy, especially for some of these products that are higher price point or things like that. You're probably going to see a couple interactions, and analytics can help you quantify that too.
If they're returning, how many times? Yeah,
or if they came in originally from, you know, social media and then went through AdWords and then did an organic search and then got an email and then, you know, like whatever the path may be. So analytics can help you with that, but even if it's not perfect, again, just having directional information is helpful. Having a sample is helpful. Like having something is helpful, because otherwise you're still throwing 5 different, you know, paint colors against the wall and seeing which one sticks. Only if you're not actually tracking it through, you don't know which one it is, so you're still throwing all 5 because one of them stuck. And you could save that 80% by just focusing on the 20% that's working.
Cool. Well, one thing that that came up in my mind as you were talking about, you know, this is that, like, I was at this website yesterday, and it was for the Clean Energy Trust here in Chicago.
Right.
Like incubator, they do, you know, clean energy. And so actually, I was looking for the about page to see who the leadership was. And it's interesting, like, you know, by the time you guys watch this, they might have changed their website. But the thing that's so interesting is that at this website, there's like almost no information about the Clean Energy Trust. You couldn't find their board of directors. You couldn't find past events, really. It was pretty much exclusively a website that was a sign up for an upcoming, I think they were looking for applications for their accelerator.
Yeah, understand.
And I thought, well, I wonder if the web is moving more towards this direction where there's these people are saying, you know what, my website is not a reflection of my entire business, but a purposeful tool.
I think it needs to still be both.
Okay.
You know, one issue I've seen a lot with brick and mortar, like companies like stores and boutiques and stuff. And restaurants, I've seen a surprisingly large amount of companies who don't have their address or hours or phone number readily findable on their website. And I think, you know, something like 50% of people, it might even be higher than that, go to a site to look for the hours, the phone number, the location, the address.
Simple information.
Like,
kind of like what I was doing.
Yeah, that's what they're looking for. And so, you know, for people, like, you have to have that readily accessible. Like, even if your customer who's getting to the page already shops with you or knows where you're located, like, don't forget that stuff. It's still really, really important.
So don't just focus specifically on the utility of, like, the funnel, the action you're trying to get them to take. You need to provide at least a little bit of...
You got to have both, because for somebody like you, that turns you off. Or, you know, like...
Well, yeah, I was kind of intrigued, because I was like, God, there's only one thing you can do with this freaking website, and it's to
but you were,
apply to be a, you know...
Right, but you're also somebody who, if they looked at your flow, you're going to have been bouncing around a bit because you were trying to find it and it wasn't there.
That's exactly right. I had to go to, like, every page to get a hint of where to go.
Right, and so, like, that's information that you want, that they should have. Now, it doesn't mean you don't want to have landing pages about specific things. It doesn't mean you may want to have microsites about specific initiatives that don't focus on the about our business and are just about, you know, sign up for the incubator and we just have this particular site just for the incubator. But there still should be some path to get people to that crucial, like, who are we, where are we, how do you contact us, that a surprisingly large percentage of people on the web are looking for. And it's stupid, I want to say it's like stupid easy for you to get those people. I mean, those are like the hottest leads you have. They know about you. They're looking for you. Right. They want to call you.
They're basically saying, I want to make a purchase.
Yeah. So have that information there. So because if you don't, you know, you could lose them. And if you're interested enough to want to know about them, you know, they should have that. I mean, you should be able to get to that information. Like, it is still your business's calling card online. Whether if you overutilize it, you're going to lose out on people who are coming for other reasons.
Well, one thing I think that was interesting that we talked about, I think off camera, is that at least so far, is that if you design your website, for example, to where people, when they take an action, are taken to some sort of completion page.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden you have this page, which essentially every page visit indicates that they have taken an action that you're trying to get them to take.
Yeah, so those are the best for conversion tracking on Google. It's the easiest way to do it.
Right.
Because you can literally just say,
how many times has this page been visited?
Yep. And it's very easy to make that a goal on Google. It's very easy to put that as the last point in a funnel. It's very easy to track that. And even if you didn't have goals set up, you could still see it. So it's really great to have a conversion page. And it's good for your users too. I mean, they know that they got through. You know?
They've been successful or whatever.
Yeah. But it's by far the easiest to track.
Well, I guess the reason I brought it up is that, it's interesting because it's like, actually, again, off camera, we were talking so far about, the process and how analytics can fit into a sophisticated business. And I think that, at least for me, I've started lots of businesses, and I kind of view analytics as like a way to measure what I'm trying to do. But you almost should start to design what you do considering the analytics possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both.
It's a little bit of
both. It's test
both.
and learn. Like, you want to start out with the analytics to see what you have.
In this really startup phase we described very first.
Right.
Yeah.
And even with a more, I mean, at any stage of company, even walking into some big companies for any initiative, okay, where are you right now? Okay, now given that, what's the best way to get where you're going? Okay, did it work? Yes or no? All right, make changes. Okay, do it again.
Right.
So it's a cycle. And so, but it should help inform your decisions. I mean, I think you're going to make better decisions if you use it to inform them. And you're right. In the beginning,
I guess
you
I'm
won't
talking
have any
about the
data.
structure of the decisions. For example, I've always created websites to be like, I need this website to show customers what I do. But maybe it's like when people who are taking this course get comfortable with the fundamentals of analytics, to actually design your website thinking that you're going to measure it from the very beginning is a good place to start.
Oh yeah. It makes your life so much easier.
Makes your life so much easier.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely think about how you're going to measure things. Definitely make sure you have tracking where you need to. There's some stuff too, like with phone numbers. There's some code you can add if you're using AdWords to drive phone calls. You can put it in your site. It'll track the phone number through. Stuff like that. It's probably easier to do from day one. I mean, it's not hard to throw it in later, but like you said, if you know some of these things are going to be important, make sure that's something you consider from day one.
Now, and then another thing I wanted to ask you about is do you see the world of analytics changing? Do you see? I mean, I'm sure Google Analytics is adding new features all the time. I mean, so where's your mind in terms of the future of this stuff?
I mean, yes, it's changing. I mean, yes and no. So some things the fundamental principles of this stuff has stayed the same, will continue to stay the same. Google...
I mean, basically, people visiting your site are always just going to be people visiting a web address.
Right, like how many people came to the site. I mean, it's the same thing as those hit counters they used to have.
Oh, like at an event or something?
No, remember the old GeoCities site, and they had that scrolling thing at the bottom.
Oh,
You are the 80th visitor to this site. You are the 81st visitor. Yeah. So, I mean, fundamentally, it's still the same thing. You're just learning more. The big things, I think, coming from Google, we've seen a lot, and I think that will be replicated across all the various analytics providers. A lot more in terms of attribution.
Now, what's attribution?
So attribution is where did the conversion come from?
Oh, like basically source medium type.
Yeah, but the issue is that, as we talked about, it's not necessarily just one source interaction. So how do you credit those other sources? So, we're talking to people who go to trade shows. A lot of B2B companies are very active in trade shows. So they'll go to the trade show, they'll meet the person at the trade show. Then they'll send an email to the person will call them. They're like 10 different interactions before that person converts. So who gets credit for that? Is it the rep at the sale that met them at the event? Is it the person who talked to them on the phone? Is it the website for actually converting them in the end?
So it's almost like if you could track the way that who sent an email, like that this customer ultimately first visited this site because of an email that came from a rep who was at a trade show, you can really start tracking it back.
Yeah, you can start tracking it through. Or, this person saw this ad, but the only reason they were receptive to that ad is because their friend had mentioned it to them the week before or something. Just getting a better handle on how the pieces are working together. Certainly for the online pieces, I think is really the big thing right now, this multi-channel thing and conversion paths, and there are various, you can do your own attribution model if you get into math and want to say, I want 20% of this to go here and 30% of this to go here. And
oh, okay.
So I mean, it's easier to do that now, but I think figuring out how to do a better job of integrating some of those offline things in, I think is going to be a big piece as well. Just in that picture, how do you get the better picture of what's happening? I also hope to just see more accuracy in terms of the demographic stuff, in terms of who these people are. An issue that and this isn't something that's fixed yet at all, but like an issue we've seen, and that you have to keep in mind if you're dealing with them. But like we work with a lot of companies that are targeting moms. The problem with targeting moms or dads, we had the same issue when we were targeting dads too. It's universal to parents. It will say that the tablet is being used by a 25 to 34-year-old male. Great. However, the apps that are being used on that app are Pretty Princess or My 1-2-3s or Dr. Seuss books or whatever it may be, because the app is being used by the kid.
So basically, people sharing devices.
Yeah. How do you know how do you make sure that your ad is only showing up to the father and not the kids?
Because then you're wasting your ad spend popping ads to a 5-year-old girl or something.
Right. For, when the dad's an accountant, you want to show them ads about, a new accounting software. Like, it's stuff like that. So I think that to me is... It's
kind of this accountability, or like you were saying, attribution. Is trying to just make sure that you are sure that the data is coming from what you think it is.
Yeah, and that you're able to reach the people, that you can therefore use that data to reach the people you think you're reaching on the other end.
Now, just in terms of like further reading type of stuff for these analytics tools, I know that there are tools like Marketo and Kissmetrics and Crazy Egg out there.
Crazy Egg is great.
Great, yeah. So, can you just talk briefly about maybe some of like your top, 2 or 3 favorite additions to analytics other than Google Analytics? Yeah.
So there are a couple of things. I think some of them I've alluded to in some of the other modules, but I'll just go through them. And I could go for days because there are a lot of really cool tools.
And they're just keep coming
right,
out.
Right, they keep coming. There's a lot of really.
I was reading the venture world has invested in 2014, 15. It's like the biggest sector of investment are these marketing tools.
Yeah, no, it's a big frontier. First off, the one that is not like crazy new technology. It's more existing technology, and it's free. Having Google Webmaster tools is really helpful if you're a webmaster, or business owner, to have that set up and hooked up into your analytics, because that's one that enables you, as we talked about, we'll talk about with one of the side-by-sides, but it helps you see for the organic searches, you can see a lot more. What are the queries? What are landing pages? So for people who are spending money on SEO, it's a very, very important piece to track what's happening there and figure out what needs to be fixed. They'll give you suggestions. It's great.
So basically, the Google Webmaster tools, is it kind of like an optimization tool for the website, or
kind of? It's what I tell people is it's your way of communicating with Google. It's okay. Google's lying to you.
You mean in terms of their algorithm and their search engine and things?
to say, we couldn't find this page, and for you to say, oh, sorry, Google, we moved this page. Here's where it is now.
Oh,
or for Google to say, we think your site doesn't work well on mobile. Here's why we think it doesn't work well on mobile. And for you to say, oh, sorry, Google, we made these changes. Look, try it again, or whatever it may be, or for you to say, yeah, Google, we don't care about mobile.
So it's kind of almost like because it's true. I mean, as your web presence or your website evolves, you need to be able, like, you don't want to be having Google's indexing of your site in an old way. You want to be able to say, hey, look, we've changed a few things around here.
That's the really important way to see a lot of that. It's the information Google gives you about SEO. So if you're doing SEO, if you care about search engine optimization, rankings, and even just in general good user experience, like very important.
Google Webmaster Tools.
Google Webmaster Tools, and it's free.
Okay.
I love Crazy Egg. Glad you mentioned it. It's really helpful in terms of click tracking and heat map tracking. And there are a bunch of other sites that do heat maps for clicks. We found that to be really helpful in terms of, again, figuring out where people are going, what they're clicking on, like which one of the buttons did they click on? Are they clicking on the first one, the second one, or the third one? Are they, that kind of thing. So it can be very helpful in terms of figuring out when browsing, does the placement of the product matter, like that kind of stuff. There's a lot you can dig out of it. The other one that we use a lot, and I think they would work well in tandem too, is Optimizely, which enables you to make your own landing pages without having to do a lot of code. So as a non-developer, I love it. In terms of testing, NAB testing, test and learn, and then it will automatically rotate them in and automatically tell you when you've hit statistical significance. So you can say, I know that I finished this experiment. This result, statistical significance is if you repeat the result, what percentage of the time is it likely to get the same answer? And if it's like 95%, that's statistically significant.
Yeah, so basically you can kind of say, according to all the work of statistics, this is a fact.
Right. So it's great for all of that, just for A/B testing, and you can use that. If you have something like Optimizely and Crazy Egg, you can start seeing like, oh, maybe do we get more clicks on this button when it was yellow instead of blue, or do we get more people scrolling down here or playing a video, and some of that you can track through analytics too. I've actually heard people tracking whole different conversion funnels with Optimizely and just switching stuff in and out. Which is really cool. But I think testing should be a part of whatever you're doing, and I like that those both kind of help you do that, help you see that. So those to me are really, really important.
Now, okay, so I guess one of my final questions is like, have you seen? I mean, as a person who is, very analytical, into math, into like the metrics, what sort of like synergy relationships have you seen with like creative people? I mean, for example, like what do you think if you were like, if I was to design my ultimate Babe Ruth partner, what goes really well with somebody who's analytical like you?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, for one, I don't know if I would call myself a huge math person, which is, I mean, so I think it's an important point because I think that a lot of the time, people will preclude themselves from this stuff
because they think involves math,
or it's too technical, too statisticsy, too developery.
Right.
I find a lot of time the people who need to know this now are people who are more creative oriented, more qualitative. We've used it with a lot of with media sites in terms of helping people like figure out what articles make sense, what headlines are the best. I mean, there's a lot of ways to use it, even if you're more creatively minded and you're not, super technical. I think it's really important not to be freaked out by the technical. So I think for me, the ideal partners and the ideal people on this are people who are, you want to be comfortable with numbers. It helps if you're comfortable with numbers, and analytical. Analytical people love this, and people who are really detail oriented, I think. I've definitely gotten into arguments with people, or not arguments, but like whole deep dive with people because numbers didn't match from their back end and the analytics and it may be something really simple and stupid and inconsequential, but it could be something important. So you really want to dig, and those to me are fun. But at the same time, I think for people like me and for people like that, it is helpful to have people who are a little more big picture, less analytical deep dive oriented,
right?
Sort of overseeing it, or at least as part of the project, to kind of keep everybody from getting too stuck in the weeds.
Right.
You want to have somebody saying, this is where we're going, this is why we're using this information, because otherwise you could get lost in this information forever.
Well, it's funny because one thing I noticed is that like you kind of enjoy like getting on and just kind of getting curious and just sort of like playing around with Google Analytics.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love seeing what's there. I think there are so many things to look at and explore. And it's so quick. I mean, once you get to know it, it's pretty quick. As long as you're in a half-decent internet connection. Mm-hmm. It's pretty quick to start like jumping around between clients, in my case, jumping around between pages, just jumping around between dates. Like there's so much to see, and so many different ways to slice it. If you are like a data person or an analytics person, it's sort of never ending. But I think that's why it's so important, as we keep stressing, like to focus on goals, have something you're looking for, or you could just be in this for days, And we were talking off camera, and haven't mentioned it yet, about the real-time feature, where you can actually see how many people are on your site at a given moment, what page they're going to, where they're coming from, where they're leaving. It flashes red when they leave, green when they come. Davis was getting really into that.
It's
cool.
Kind of
watching it, where they are in the country. It's addictive. But again, if you watch that all day, you probably shouldn't sit and watch that all day.
You do stuff.
But if there are other points where it is good to watch that. So if you did just do a launch, or if a story is breaking for a media company, that's a great place to go. So, or to see if things are working, or what's taking off, or what's not. So,
cool.
So it's just a matter of I think keeping things in perspective.
Yeah.
Wanting to learn and wanting to dive in. I mean, you gotta want to be curious, or I don't think it. I think it's best when people are curious, but it's helppful to have somebody playing okay.
Gotta have a flag in the ground somewhere.
Yeah.
We're going over here.
We're going over here. This is what we're looking for. What's the answer? Because otherwise you could get buried.
Cool. All right, Reva, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.